Okay, now I'm starting the recording. These ongoing webinars, we'll be posting the videos of these recordings to that page. We currently have up there the recording of Monday's call on our missional response. And then today, hopefully today, we'll have recordings of the formation call we just had, this worship call, and then the pastoral care call we're having this afternoon. Technology resources, these are where I'm adding some basics on how to log on to Zoom, right? And so if you've got folks in your congregation that you're trying to invite to Zoom meetings for vestries or formation or whatever, and they ask you questions, we put together a step-by-step instruction guide with pictures to try to lessen that burden. There's also some resources there for trying to do online worship, and we'll talk more about that. And then here is the worship resources. This is the main page. The top of this is links to websites or apps or podcasts that enable folks to worship on their own. So I encourage you to provide this or resources like this to our people and for us personally. And then down here, this is wildly out of date now because a lot more parishes need to be added here. Frankly, we can't keep up with all that. And so here's some things to get started as far as churches that currently live stream. You can go see some copies of recordings of what those look like. We'll go back to the technology resources. Like I said, here's the Zoom meetings down at the bottom, but then tips and best practices for online worship. This is another kind of basic primer of, again, the out-of-date list of parishes that live stream. But then down here is kind of absolute basic. A lot of this varies based on the resources of the congregation, both financial resources and knowledge resources. Some congregations have people that understand technology and can do this easily and can do this beyond what these simple steps are. But some congregations, even these steps are going to prove difficult. But these are basics of, where to stream, how to stream, getting started, questions and answers. So you can find that, and live streaming or copyright issues. We can talk about those questions. Answers to those questions are a moving target this week and last week. So it's hard to get kind of absolute factual information because the publishing houses are working to support us all there. But all of that we're trying to throw onto this page. One thing we are working to do as a diocesan staff is to have one place that congregations could use in lieu of their own. This we can have a discussion about, but as I see it, there's a need for both. There's a need for local congregations, if they're able, to offer worship opportunities on their own because they are their local congregation, and you as clergy or you as other leaders, you can speak more specifically to local needs. And so if you decide to do worship on your own, digitally or however, I encourage you to do that. At the same time, if trying to figure this out causes you undue stress or you don't have enough time in the day with trying to meet all your other demands that are exceeding right now, we as a diocese are going to offer opportunities to worship. What that looks like right now, at least for Sunday, is probably piggybacking on the cathedral's worship, and it may continue to do that. I talked with Dorian some and the technology folks there. I haven't talked to Canon Grosso yet, but he's on the call, and so he can speak to that later. But for them to serve as a cathedral role and offer worship. The first trial run of this tonight will be the ordination of Caitlin Darnell. We will be live streaming that from the diocesan webpage and our Facebook, as well as St. Martin's doing it from their Facebook and such as well. But then every Sunday morning, our goal is to have a worship of some sort. It might be Eucharist, it might be morning prayer, it might be something different, but a communal worship of some sort that we offer digitally for our congregations. So I will stop sharing my screen, and those are the resources that we've compiled so far as a diocese. I will update our website in real time as you offer other things that y'all are trying or other resources that you found. But now I open this up and it's a true roundtable. Maybe the first question I'll throw out there is, what are the things that you found that have been working? And the title of this is online, but for some people, online may not be what's working. It may be conference calls. It may be other things. And so I invite you to just talk about the things you've tried, the things that you found success in, and share with one another.
Alan, I'll start if somebody, this is Mary Balfour, Dunlap and Greenwood. Couple of things. We've been doing Compline every night and just amazed at how many people are watching that. And now we're going to switch that out throughout different families. So it's not just me. My dad is a retired priest. He did it last night. So we get some different voices in that. I've said this in the last meeting I was just in, we just did a banner outside the church for those that are driving by that might need help because the doors of the church are closed right now. And so that might be helpful to people. And then I've asked our vestry, now we're a smaller parish of a little over 200 people, but I've asked our vestry, we divided it up and everyone in the parish is getting a phone call. Checking in on them. Do you need anything? And if you don't need anything, are you willing to do errands for people that do need things? And then also directing them to Facebook Live Sunday morning at 10:30. So the number of people that have liked our Facebook page has jumped dramatically in the last 48 hours, which is, I'm trying to find the good in some of this. And so maybe that's a good thing. That's what we're doing. It's been helpful.
Yeah, I like that idea of sharing the load. My parish was closed for 3 weeks after Hurricane Harvey when I was in Houston. And we had a practice of daily morning and evening prayer on site at the parish for years and years before that. We couldn't do that because people couldn't get there or leave their homes. So we started the online prayer. And so I like the sharing the load, because at first it was just me and the other priest doing it, and it gets to be a lot. And so whatever we do, we need to think about sustainability, because this is not going to be a short thing that we're trying to do. And so as we try to think about new ways, I think finding ways to be sustainable and smart and good stewards of our time and our people's time is great. And it also encourages participation from other people. All those reasons that we want to raise up other leaders. So thank you for that, Mary Balfour.
Hey there, Alan. This is Dorian. One of the things we're doing at the cathedral is morning prayer. We are recording the day before and doing fully vested, set up in Siebel's Chapel, in the Blue Chapel. We will incorporate rotation that includes others outside of the clergy, but just as we get it rolling or starting with those of us at the office and the clergy, and we have it scheduled to post 7 a.m. in the morning. So I go ahead and upload it, get it scheduled, and then that way, whatever time people get their day started, whether they're early risers or or they're home with the kids, they get a more formal, traditional, vested morning prayer. And then in the evenings, we're doing kind of like what Mary Balfour is doing, with something that's more informal at homes, like I was on my back porch last night and that sort of thing. So we get this dynamic of more formal in the morning and then more kind of informal, homey, and that one is done, like Facebook Live, so it has a little more, engagement, if you will. And so that's what we're delineating on a daily basis. And then we're just trying to figure out how to, and I guess maybe this will be part of the conversation later, Sunday mornings, do we continue to do Eucharist? Do we shift to something that's not? Do we find ways to engage people differently with the Eucharist? But right now we're trying to maintain a full, a smaller choir, staying within a limited number of people so that we can still offer the musical offerings and the fullness of the cathedral worship for whoever happens to log on and needs that resource. And we're even looking at, so doing one liturgy in the morning, and then we're even looking at doing evensong, or normal sung evensong in the evenings, and trying to maintain that as well, and streaming that. And then on Thursdays, we have Compline at 8 o'clock in the cathedral with candles and just a smaller choir. And we're going to try to stream that live as well. And so trying to find this balance of some of our, more full liturgies, but with also home, smaller personal engagement, and that sort of thing. And so that's kind of, what we're wrestling with is the technology side. What are the camera? We just ordered a new camera, trying it out, a Mevo. How do we improve the sound quality? Because it's better than a phone, but not quite as good as what we wanted. External mics, we got questions around that. We're trying to figure out. And so it's just staging that out over days, which I don't have maybe weeks. I don't have all the answers for that. We're kind of playing with it as we go and adding things on. It's in that list of things they don't train you for at seminary necessarily, which maybe they should start including a technology class to get us on the front end of the curve instead of having to always work from behind. But that's a little summation of some of the things we're doing, trying to find a balance.
Thank you. Mark, yeah.
I'd like to ask a question regarding which is more appropriate. I mean, okay, so we're doing quick and dirty streaming on an iPad, and it was great. But we had 50 people at the service on Sunday, and so we did communion. My question is, how appropriate is communion versus morning prayer? When we're talking about, in my case, maybe I'll have 4 people. Maybe it'll be me, my organist, and a reader, and so I'm kind of thinking through: should I be celebrating communion, or should we be just offering morning prayer on Sunday? And I'd like to hear some thoughts on that.
Yeah, Stephen.
Actually, at our vestry meeting last night, we had that conversation, and the vestry encouraged me to continue to celebrate the Eucharist on Sundays. It is familiar for people. It is comforting for people. They felt switching to morning prayer would be difficult for people to follow at home. And what I've actually done is 2 years ago, St. James had a situation where we had a funeral with 800 people. We only seat 200 people in the church. It's not a big church. And we had to figure out how to essentially simulcast it into our gym where we put chairs up. So 2 years ago, we kind of went through the technology birth pangs that a lot of people are going through now. And we established our own YouTube channel, and we live stream directly to YouTube. And it's all connected in with our sound system at church. And luckily, we have a gentleman who used to run the sound system at the Greenville Symphony who designed everything. So it works really well. But it is a very strange thing to be standing in a church with yourself or maybe 1 or 2 other people and celebrating the Eucharist. It is just odd. However, what we've done is on our live stream page included the prayer from the Armed Forces prayer book that acknowledges when you cannot receive communion sacramentally, physically, you can still spiritually participate with what's going on. So we are continuing to do all of our regular services. We are doing Eucharist, 2 Eucharists on Sunday, Stations of the Cross, and a Eucharist on Wednesday evenings. And we are starting to do morning prayer every Monday through Friday, adding that to our schedule. And one other thing we did, which may be helpful to some of you, is I started doing video messages to the parish rather than just sending out an email, and they've really appreciated that connection. Just sending a video message instead of an email to the parish made a big difference for a lot of them. They feel much more connected to what's going on, and they want the church to continue to operate as the church. And we had on Sunday, when we live streamed our 10:30 service, I had a guy send me an email from Nebraska who tuned in and watched it because his church couldn't get their Zoom working right. So he went looking for a service and found ours. So you never know who you're going to minister to when you put it out there. So it is an opportunity to find blessings in exceptionally difficult circumstances. But since we've gone through a lot of the technology here already, I'd be happy to help anybody who has questions about how to set up a YouTube channel or to live stream to YouTube, because all of those services then are saved on YouTube. And we got all of our licenses. I don't know how many of you use onelicense.net as your license for your music, but they have a gratis period right now for pod streaming and live streaming. So if you need help with any of that, let me know and I'd be happy to help y'all.
Stephen, when you say you sent a video to everyone in the congregation instead of an email, how do you quote send it?
What I do is, because if you have a YouTube account, if you've got a Google account, you can use your camera just like you are now on your phone or your iPad and record a video. And then you can upload that video to your YouTube account. And then you can get a link that you can put in an email to the parish, and they can click on that link and you can talk to them through video.
Hey, Stephen, the prayer you included from the Armed Service Prayer Book, that's a great, I totally blanked on that. Where is that at the end of the Eucharistic section? Do you remember where that is in the Armed Service Prayer Book?
Could you send it out?
Let me see if I can pull that up, Dorian.
It may be from an older version, because I've seen one from like the 48 Armed Services Prayer Book.
I want to say it's like it's in the 50s.
Or yeah, so it may not be the current edition, Dorian. But yeah, so this is something that we talked about with Bishop Waldo on Monday. There is no pastoral directive around this. But so the competing interests, right? If the community's not gathered, what's the take on Eucharist? And we can have a theological discussion around that. But the comfort level, you know, people don't by and large know morning prayer. And so if that's what we're leading, are people going to be able to naturally follow along? So what we talked about, and, you know, a suggestion I have is to do the liturgy of the word. What the liturgy of the table looks like, if it's something like y'all are doing, Stephen, which I think is a great option, or I think Furman is working on something that's that doesn't involve the Eucharist per se, but involves some readings and some prayers based on the anti-communion idea. But offering that, so it's the structure that people are familiar with, it's the responses and the prayers that they know for the first part. And then the second part can get a little tricky depending on your sacramental theology, and those are legitimate discussions. But
yeah,
there has been some of that may come up in the calls, the clergy and warden calls with the bishop. He may have given some more thought to that. I don't know. But that's a legitimate thing. If it's someone just at home, like if the clergy person isn't leaving their home and it's just them at their table, that's a different thing. If there's not other people at the altar or whatever, then that brings up other questions about the Eucharist. And during Hurricane Harvey, I celebrated Eucharist alone at a dining room table. Mm-hmm. And I was deeply uncomfortable, but pastorally, sometimes you do things. Mm-hmm. And so I'm happy to talk about that. Alice, you have a comment. You'll need to unmute, and then Mary Balfour.
Hey, everybody. This is Alice from St. Timothy's. And I need to know if this is legit or heretical or what, but I remembered several weeks ago, it came to me in my prayer time that although the Eucharist had devolved to only the priest participating in it way back when, that's why Sanctus bells were rung, that people could look up when something important was happening, and that the idea was that they communed, that there's this thing called ocular communion, that you actually are participating in what you see. And so I invited my folks, even 3 weeks ago, if they were uncomfortable with the common cup, to know that they were still participating in it by viewing it. And they appreciated that.
Thank you. Mary Balfour, you had your hand.
Yeah, two quick things. So I encouraged everybody to watch the National Cathedral service last week, and I walked out of the room. So if y'all said this, I'm sorry, but whatever the prayer was that they used at the end, that the dean used, that encompassed everybody, even though they weren't physically there, was really beautiful. And I don't know where it came from or anything like that, but it was language encompassing folks that were not in the room. So that was the dean of the cathedral, Washington National Cathedral, used that. Alan, if y'all want to go back and look that up, it was really, really nice. If we have to continue to do this, one idea that we have come up with, and I don't know if the bishop would sanction this or not, is there's a drive-in theater here. And we were talking about possibly having Easter if we're still not allowed to be in the building there. So being creative in that way of where people would be in their cars. And that might be sort of a drive-by Eucharist type of thing. And I don't know, that was just a thought somebody had. Because it seems like this is going to be a little bit longer than the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. So for that, I've seen, and Gary had his hand up, so we'll let him, and then Stephen will get to you. I've seen other people do that. That, again, thoughts like that are things that can come up potentially with the bishop for his input on those calls tomorrow and Friday. As we look toward that, it's a very real possibility that we won't be able to gather in large groups for Easter. And so we will need to think about that. Gary, you had some thoughts.
Yeah, I was just going to share what we did on Sunday. And first off, yeah, I've had a number of people in the church say, y'all must have spent days putting this together. And really all I did was look at the links that you put up and ordered a tripod and the iPhone mic. And we set that up in the church. And we did a Shanghai Mass. So we usually have an 8:30 and a 10:30 service, but we just did the 10:30 service. And we had a verger, subdeacon, thurifer, me, and an organist, and a member of the altar guild. So we had 6 people there for the worship. And we did Eucharist, and we had, we didn't do all the hymns, everything. So we did kind of reduced music, but we had voluntary and music during the offertory as the table is set. And that will be our plan to continue to do that. We'll have a low mass that we do on Wednesday nights at 6:30 that we will broadcast as well. That probably will just have me and a server and a lector and a member of the altar guild. But I don't see any problem with doing Eucharist with as long as there's more than one person there. And I think that it is, especially the way that we do it. I wanted to do it with all of those things that are comforting people and that are a part of our regular worship. And so we, had the thurifer and censed the altar and did all that. The other thing that I've been doing personally is, to the extent that I'm home with the kids, we're doing daily devotions for individuals and families at before breakfast or right after breakfast at noon, and then in the evening. And I recorded one of those and posted it to the parish just so people would be aware of that, to the extent they're intimidated by doing the daily office, that this is a very easy short prayer that people can do. And the question I had about some of the suggestions that y'all made is, if you were doing having different families lead Compline from home, are they live streaming that? And then if they're live streaming that, how are they able to live stream that through your Facebook account?
So the thing I've seen is whoever's an administrator can add administrator privileges to other people for a day, as long as they have a Facebook account, and then take them away. Like when I've gone and live stream services at parishes, I'll have that parish add me as an administrator for that Sunday, and then they go in and remove me so I don't post things later on. So if you're an administrator for the parish Facebook page, you can add people. So that way you don't have to give them the main login info. You control when they have it. Couple things. Mark in the group chat just referenced the Armed Forces prayer book. I'm going to share my screen real quick for what he has. I've thrown this link on our worship resources page. It's from the Armed Forces prayer book of 51. It's a prayer for spiritual communion. So it's a really long link. You don't need to copy that down. I'll share the link in the chat, or it is on our online worship or our prayer resources page.
At the very bottom is the prayer.
Yeah.
That one there.
Yeah, this here.
And Alan, the Armed Forces prayer book that was last updated in 2002.
Yeah.
It's on page 55.
Oh, okay. So the green one.
The prayer is slightly different, but it's still the same idea. Yeah, it's in the green one.
Okay.
On page
Tina.
55.
Tina, looked like you had a response to Gary. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that can happen, so we live stream to YouTube, which is helpful in one particular kind of way. The other thing that is, becoming more in terms of that we may want to all be looking towards in terms of facilitating community is harnessing the Facebook Live and or Instagram Live videos, because what they equip us to be able to do is have people be in conversation with each other while it's going on, and tune in and creating community, and some people kind of all liking and commenting and being a part of. Now there's always something that our world opens up. Letting anyone watch and comment can open a can of worms, but I also think that for parishioners to be able to have some more engagement on those things as they're happening is helpful. So if you're doing Compline, so for the diocesan youth Instagram page, one thing we're doing, which I think is really helpful, is in the evenings, every day at 6 o'clock, there's one adult and one teenager, and they are coming together to lead Compline on Instagram. And the way that works is that one person is logged into the diocesan Instagram account and starts a live video. And another person can request to be included on that. And what'll happen is it splits out the screen, and so there's kind of like this, but the adults in one and the youth in the other, and you could be in different cities, which is neat, and we're different in different places, and kind of come together to lead worship that way. I've been thinking through a little bit, dreaming up what it might look like to do a drive-through Stations of the Cross. And I'm still working on logistics and thinking as to what that could pragmatically look like. But, if you could have families drive onto your property and do the Stations of the Cross in their vehicle, that might be neat. And then one thing that we've been doing already is Holy Week bags for families to take home, so that there's little tools in the Holy Week bag for each day, or for the major services of Holy Week, but then thinking bigger than that and making it maybe more adult friendly towards okay, well, if we had a little, usually it's for Palm Sunday, there's a little palm thing you put in there. What if we took pre-blessed palms and put those in there for Palm Sunday, so people while they're live streaming have a palm, or so they can kind of have a kinetic tool to be engaged while maybe live streaming or being engaged in worship some other way.
I said this in the formation call at 10, a plug for that call. The recording will be up on the website. If there's ways that we can incorporate youth in some of this leading, number one, they're digital natives, so this stuff doesn't scare them as much. Number two, it shows the church that the youth are actually leading us now. And it's a chance to think of ways to incorporate them in the larger life of the parish. And so if you do have youth in your congregation, number one, you could ask them about various ways that they could see beyond even just Facebook. But incorporating them in that work would be awesome. So thank you for that, Tina. A couple of questions that were asked in the chat, if you can't see the chat, about the admin privileges on Facebook. Dorian asked, if you give someone a privilege and take it away, is there a limit on adding it back? I haven't experienced that. So I can't speak, completely knowledgeably, but I've been added, removed, and added again from pages with no issue. And then Alice asked a very good question about, will Facebook be overloaded on Sunday? And Facebook is aware that this is going to happen. Facebook has a director of faith partnerships, and she's been active in some of the church communicator groups I've been a part of. And Facebook has more computer processing power than God, and so they're working on making sure that doesn't happen. But Sunday morning we'll find out. Zoom has had similar conversations because now they're being stretched, but they're prepared, and there haven't been problems, widespread outages for Zoom either. And so the technology companies are aware that the businesses and churches in particular are trying this technology, and they're working to make sure they can handle that. Other thoughts? I want us to hold pretty closely just to honor your time, and because we have other calls coming up today. We got 15, 20 minutes left to chat, or if there's nothing else. If people have specific technical questions, Stephen offered his expertise. I've already talked to some clergy, and I'm happy to continue to do so, because every technical problem is going to be a little bit different based on any number of factors. We can talk about some of those here, but it may be more specific to your location. Dan, you raised your hand.
Well, thank you, and good morning, y'all. I was planning on not live streaming, but recording the day before, after our deck meeting, record things in the sanctuary and have about 4 people present. And once we get to the Eucharist, we have the Eucharist. I love that. I'm going to try to work in that armed forces piece, but then to receive myself and also the part of the altar party, but then to have the camera focus on the sacrament and step away for about 2 minutes or 3 minutes of meditation. And this is adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. I don't think that's overly crazy. I think that's something that it goes back to what Alice was saying with ocular communion, and that you can meditate off of that and then come in and close the service. Well, the other thing we're doing is like Stephen, it's not every day. I'm hoping to have it every other day, to have to shoot a video and to just have about a 2-minute meditation and have a link, drop it into an email and send that out, like I say, every other day. But also putting all this stuff, building everything on our website. And the other thing was something that he's on our mission committee, but he's also our communications guy. And what we're doing is we're having voices from parishioners to do Stations of the Cross, and we're taking pictures of the church of our stations. And then, so you're seeing that, but you're hearing their voices, and we're going to put that onto also on our website. That's going to probably take a couple of days, but and still toying with morning prayer, maybe just Tuesday or Thursday, which is our typical schedule here at church, here in Aiken. So if you're gun shy about Facebook Live, not because of technology, or just you screw something up or something, and you have a little bit of chance of editing, perhaps shooting it the day before might be something, as an option. So.
Thank you.
Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. Gary, your hand's up.
This is maybe a technical question, but I just thought I'd throw it out there. When we did our Facebook Live worship, I scheduled it as an event. So, it was, and then it wasn't clear to me how to, when I went live, if I was actually doing it through that event. Does that make sense? Or if that is something that you do, or I couldn't tell how to do that through my phone. And so, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And so I can't share my phone because I don't have a thing to plug it in, but I'll hold it up to the camera and try to show. So first off, disregard the games that my kids have downloaded. But if you can see that, there's a Facebook pages, this top left. That's a way, if you're an administrator and log into that, you have more direct control over the page. There's some things you can do from your Facebook app, but if you download the Facebook page app, you have a little more control. Then you open it up and it shows you, I'm trying to hold, there we go. It's like Price is Right, trying to show. There's lots of things. You should have a button that says publish right there. So you tap on that publish button and then, well, hold on. It's actually not showing it for me. Okay, so let me show you where you might run into an issue. So down here, there's kind of a bar that says add to your post. You might have to click on that and it'll bring a drop down. And then one of those things is a live video. And so there you can see a live video of my office. You can type in right here, you can type in the words, you know, welcome to worship or whatever. And then you hit start live video. That just starts it from the page. There's another thing. So you can create a Facebook event, and from within that event, you can go live as well. But there, I believe that only people who have expressed interest in the event will get notifications. This is where Facebook starts to break down. If I just went live from edusc.org right now and started broadcasting my office, everyone who has liked our page would get a notification. You know, the little red thing that pops up, whatever. If I created an event, I believe only the people who have liked or expressed interest in that event would get it. So it's a subset. You can't really schedule from your phone Facebook Live. There's ways to do it from a computer. It's a little more convoluted. So it's a bit of a workaround because you can't point people to a specific website necessarily to get it directly, but you can tell people to go to your Facebook page and it'll pop up. The event limits the number of people who can see it. If your church has a Facebook group, you can go live in that group as well. But here again, it's only the people who are members of that group. It gets really technical and complicated after that. Mark, you have a thought?
Yeah, the Facebook Pages app is, that's Facebook 301. If you really just want to do something simple, quick and dirty, make sure that your church has a Facebook page, not a group, and use that. And if you want to, I can talk you through that much. The advantage of using a page is that anybody and everybody can get to it. You don't have to be a member of Facebook. In other words, you get an external link. And, you know, we had people on Sunday that, you know, from all over the country. I mean, I was amazed. And if you have an iPad, it's simpler than with an iPhone. I can tell you that too. It's just, you can even schedule it using the iPad interface. So Alice, if you want more information on that or anybody else, shoot me a line.
Yeah, here, I'll try to, let me see. There's a way to get through, if you're in the Facebook page, let me see if I can make my, okay, there. I think you can all see me bigger now. So if you just go to the Facebook page, this is just the Facebook app that you have. You can start things live from your own personal thing, but if you click these little three arrows, the hamburger, you can go and a bunch of stuff, but your pages are at the top. And so then it's the pages that you work with. Sorry, this is all backwards. And so then you can go in and there you can get to your administrator side to where you can post on the page that you're an administrator for. So this takes it a step beyond just you posting as Gary Eichelberger's Facebook page, but to St. Andrews. So there's ways to get to those tools from either just the regular Facebook app or from the Facebook Pages app if you download that separately.
One, just follow up on that. So I was able to do all that. I just wasn't sure if I was doing it through the event, and that maybe doesn't matter.
Gotcha.
And then the second thing is somebody posted a comment about that we need to make sure people know that they need to press the red button. And I don't know what that is. What would that mean? Do you have any idea?
I don't know. So
okay. That's fine.
What that means is when you are streaming on your page, down on the left side, there will be a little red thing saying live, and you click on that and it brings up the video feed.
Okay.
Yeah. And depending on, if people have liked you and get notifications from you, if they're on their phone, their little red bell is going to light up and it'll say, St. Andrews Greenville is live, and they can click on that and go to it. The way Facebook handles it, a lot of it depends on how people have interacted with the page. It's confusing. But if you just start it from your Facebook page, it's not in the event. You would have to go into the event and go live from there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you just do it generally, it's just on the page. And I'll make me not the spotlight. And so I'll go back. Well, I don't want to, their mark is the spotlight. Let's go back to, I think we can see everyone now, potentially, depending on your settings. We got 5 or 10 minutes. For last questions or thoughts. One thing I will say, and I shared this with the formation folks. After Hurricane Harvey, my parish was closed down for 3 weeks, and it gets exhausting in 3 weeks really, really quick. You're trying to do all of these things, especially when you try to do things daily, and especially when you're trying to do, right? The stats on clergy who are involved in disaster scenarios are not great, right? The only ones we have are for hurricanes, things like that. And it's something like 3/4 to a half of clergy who go through situations like that are no longer with their parish within like 3 to 5 years. And there's even a pretty high number who are no longer in the ministry after those times. ERD has tracked some of that information. We don't have the data on clergy who have gone through a pandemic, because I don't know that CPG recorded that stuff back in 1918. But let me tell you that this is a long road. We don't know what it's going to look like for the next several weeks, potentially the next several months. And so do what you can to help our people gather. Do what we can to help people participate in the worship and the sacramental life of the church. But our call potentially primarily is just to be with our people. And if that's phone calls, if that's whatever, and we don't ever figure out the technology, we don't ever figure, it's okay. If things cause you undue stress, let the congregations that know how to do these things support you. And so if there's churches in the Greenville area, it sounds like there's 2 of them on this call that have streams, that know what they're doing, let them support you in that way. There's congregations in the Midlands, let them support you in that way. Like I said at the beginning, some of you hopped on later, the diocese is looking at providing streams of worship from other congregations, but to support those places that don't have the time or the capability to figure it out. This is a time where we need each other. This is a time where we are, a collection of churches. And so don't run yourself ragged trying to figure out how to get better sound from a mic, from a phone, right? If you have time and can do that, that's wonderful. But if you have other pastoral needs, or if you need to take a break, right? Sabbath is important, because Sabbath is what makes sure we can do this 5 weeks from now and not just next week. And so I haven't preached in several weeks. And so you just let me get some things off my chest about that for what it's worth. But I've been through it, right? Like when I was 20 years old, my youth group experienced a mass shooting and 7 of my kids died. And I failed out of college within 18 months. So like it can go downhill really, really fast. And so figure out how you take time for yourself, figure out how you balance the competing interests that come up, but also figure out how we enable our people to worship God and participate in the life of our communities. Any last thoughts or suggestions? We'll continue to have these calls eventually. We're working on some other ones. This is the sales pitch portion. At 1 o'clock today, we have a link, or we'll have one of these roundtables on pastoral care, how we use different technologies or different ideas for whatever to check in with our folks and provide pastoral care. We're working on one for stewardship, because that may look different it will look different for folks, frankly. So we're working on bringing in the Vandersall Collective, the people that did our Diocesan Stewardship Day. Don't know when that'll be. We're also working on a morning prayer training, not a lay licensure potentially, but working with Jim Farwell, who's the liturgics professor at VTS, to do a webinar teaching people the basics of how to get through morning prayer. It's primarily geared toward congregations that don't have clergy, so that they can have lay people that can offer something for their congregations. But we're going to open it up broadly so that anyone who's interested in how they can worship on their own or worship at home potentially can do that. So that's 2 areas that we're going to add to these ministry roundtables. If you have other thoughts of ministry areas that you'd like us to cover, let us know, and we'll put those together and try to find experts who can help us think through those things. And then we'll also check in, right? Because a week from now or 2 weeks from now, we'll all be in a different place technologically, potentially, where we can say, here's things that have worked after a couple weeks. So we'll have these check-ins where we can share with one another successes and failures. Any last thoughts on that? Seeing none, I appreciate y'all's time. I've been recording this, and so probably later this afternoon, it'll be on our ongoing webinars page for you to refer back to. I've tried to put up the links that people have talked about on our prayer resources page. And if there's other resources, prayer resources to help people at home or to help congregations digitally, shoot those to me and I'll get those on that page. But otherwise, thank you for your time, and know that I'm praying for y'all. This office is praying for y'all, and we're gonna see each other on the other side someday. So go in peace to love and serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God. Thanks, Alan, for organizing all this. Appreciate it.
No problem. All right, I will end this for all of you.